community center with a movie theater and pools. Colleges have become country clubs because we're too generous with taxpayer money.
Well, okay, fair enough, but we don't want the other side to happen, right? We don't want it only to be the super affluent kids in those schools affording those things. And that is what's going to happen if you don't give kids a reasonable path. Work hard, pay your debts responsibly, and you know what? Maybe we'll
pay
give
your
you a
debts
little
responsibly.
help. And maybe we'll reward you by giving you a little help along the way, huh?
All right, well, that reward comes at the expense of taxpayers and the banks. I don't know why a bank would lend money. Ellis, before you go, I just want to mention that last time you appeared on the show, the other guest was Herman Cain, who's now leading in the polls for the Republican presidential nomination. And this clip of you with your mouth wide open has been circulating on TV shows and all over the internet.
I'm pro-life, period.
If a woman is raped, she should not be allowed to end the pregnancy?
That's her choice. That is not government's choice.
Good.
I support life from conception.
So abortion should be legal?
No, abortion should not be legal. I believe in the sanctity of life.
I'm not understanding.
I believe...
Legal or if it's her choice, that means it's legal.
No.
I still don't really understand what happened, but the camera happened to cut to you right at the moment when you had that look on your face.
John, do not invite me on your show if you do not want my honest reactions to things that I hear. How about that?
Well, I appreciate your honest reactions. Thank you, Ellis Henneken. When we return, government wants to get inside your smartphone and regulate your apps. Why?
Leave us alone for a change.
The politicians and regulators always want to do more. Recently, there have been shortages of some drugs. You may have heard about that. Cancer patients can't get drugs they need. Well, why? Well, one reason is that a big drug maker shut down for about a year, in part to meet FDA rules. The FDA is so tough, it makes it so expensive to make a drug that often drug companies say, we can't afford to make that. So does the FDA then say, sorry, we'll back off? No. The regulators almost never do that. In fact, now the FDA wants to do more. They want to regulate how your doctor uses his smartphone. They want the power to approve mobile medical applications like this one that lets doctors monitor patients' vital signs over a phone. Here's the doctor who developed it explaining it.
Even though I'm away from the hospital, I can still look at this real-time waveform data just as if I were at the patient's bedside. But doctors like me can't be at the bedside 24/7, so we had to figure out ways to bring the data to the mobile physician anytime, anywhere, and we've now done that on the iPhone.
Sounds great to me, makes doctors more efficient. But the FDA says, no, 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 you just can't put something on your phone if it's a medical device. What if it doesn't work right? We have to approve it. And most people's first instinct is to say, yeah, I don't want some huckster getting rich off some device that might not work right. It might kill me. This is a medical device. I want the FDA to make sure everything medical is safe and effective. That's the FDA's mandate. And thinking that way is just intuitive. But lawyer Jonathan Emord says what's intuitive is wrong. Why is it wrong?
It's wrong because these regulations are costly, they're burdensome, and they prevent essential medical apps from getting into the marketplace, often to the expense of people's lives.
This might kill me if it's not done right.
Well, these things are being developed by people who know what they're doing. They're being developed by doctors and by experts of various kinds in science. There are over 200 million mobile medical apps in the marketplace today, and not a single complaint that someone's died or been seriously injured by a single one.
Well, what's the harm of just letting the government make sure it's safe and effective?
Well, that's not what it's about, because there's so much corruption at the Food and Drug Administration. There's so much anti-competitive bias within the agency that what's really going on
by
here
corruption,
is
you
winners.
don't mean taking bribes, as far as we know.
Well, it's almost like that, because you've got career employees in the political positions at the agency who are deciding how best to leave the agency. And if you feather the right nests, you'll do well for yourself after you leave. And this is well known.
Meaning you make it tougher for some company's competitor to get in the marketplace, and then you get a job with the big company?
Precisely. Picking winners and losers, that's what it's all about.
And the big company is better at dealing with the FDA.
Oh, yes. They have lobbyists constantly working it over with the political appointees. Unlike other agencies, the lobbyists have an open door at the FDA.
And what are we losing?
By the regulations?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. We're losing time, precious time that lives are dependent upon. There are instances, for example, MIM Software developed a simple mobile device that would combine MRI images, PET scans, CAT scans all together and produce a super image that was better for diagnosis. To get that through the
right
agency,
here on your phone.
Right on your phone. To get that through the agency took 2.5 years and cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. All the while, it could have been in use, and ultimately it was approved. But it's this kind of delay and multiple inquiries coming from the agency on ridiculous things many times that really hurts the American public.
And there is a bias in the reporting, and we in the media mess this up, because if something does go wrong, we make a huge story about it, and your fellow lawyers get rich suing a company that made a mistake. But when they delay it for 2.5 years and people die, we don't know who those people were because they didn't have the thing.
Well, that's right. I mean, if you take, for example, Earl and Grant Wright, who created this simple thing, all it was 2 sheets of plastic with silicone gel in between that would be used for self-breast examination. It worked in a fantastic way to exaggerate the presence of a tumor at an early stage.
A woman would use this for self-examination.
Exactly. And that thing was kept off the market for 10 years. It cost the company millions of dollars to get it through the FDA. All the while, doctors around the country are clamoring for it because it's so beneficial, and what's the risk involved with that?
I don't hear the companies complaining about the evil FDA being too slow. I don't hear a peep. In fact, I hear the big companies saying, we like the regulation.
Well, it has a great anti-competitive benefit if you're in the sack with the FDA. But when you're outside, there's another risk. If you raise your head above the parapet and you become vocal in your criticisms, the FDA remembers like an elephant and will stamp you out of existence.
They'll punish
That's the
you,
threat.
right?
They'll punish you.
This person complained about us. We're going to take an extra week on his application.
It's so much discretion in their hands. They sit like emperors reigning over this stuff.
All right, we would like to hear from the FDA on this. If you're an FDA person who wants to be in this show, give us a call. Thank you, Jonathan Emord. Up next, the government's plan to protect you from street vendors who sell flowers. The motto of the Fox Business Network is giving people the power to prosper. Well, what really allows people to prosper is being able to start your own business and run it without interference from bureaucrats and tax collectors. However, these days, America's crawling with bureaucrats and tax collectors. They make it hard to run a business. Now and then I try to illustrate that by trying to open my own business. Here's one I called the Stossel store. I tried to sell stuff on the streets of Delaware.
You want to buy a Fox t-shirt?
Not right now.
Hey, I didn't say it was a smart business, but this ability to at least try to succeed is important. But America doesn't make it easy. I had to register with the Delaware Secretary of State and Division of Corporations.
Get a federal employee identification number. Buy commercial liability insurance. Register with the Delaware State Department of Finance.
It was good that I did all that because this cop came over to make sure I had my vending permit.
Cost me $10.
Yeah, the city of Wilmington will get you.
All right, but I'm legal, right?
Yeah, you're legal.
But what if I wasn't legal? What if I tried, say, to sell flowers on the street in Hialeah, Florida? There, I could be arrested if my flower stand is close to a flower store, or if I don't constantly move my stand around. The Institute for Justice made this video about that.
Hundreds of people who earn their living as street vendors in Hialeah operate in legal limbo, as the city has turned into a confusing patch of no vending zones.
The Institute is a libertarian law firm that sues governments that limit entrepreneurs' economic freedom. And they've gotten rid of laws that make it very expensive to get a taxi driver's license, and laws that prevent monks from selling caskets. A casket's just a wooden box. Laws that prevent young women from starting hair braiding businesses, and so on. Institute lawyer Elizabeth Foley has now sued the city of Hialeah. She argues that its street vending law is unconstitutional. Raul Martinez was the mayor of the town when the law was passed, and he says, heck no, this law isn't unconstitutional. So, Elizabeth, what's the problem? They're just trying to have an orderly marketplace.
It's not an orderly marketplace, it's complete chaos. It makes it virtually impossible to be an effective street vendor. You can't be within 300 feet of any brick and mortar store that sells the same or similar merchandise. That's absolutely ridiculous for the government to use its power to enact a law like that. What's the purpose of a law like that?
Well, I could say they want to get property taxes from brick and mortar stores, and the street vendor doesn't have to pay those.
Tax issues are tax issues. We're not litigating tax issues here. This is about the right of street vendors to pursue their lawful occupation. It's a lawful occupation. That's like passing a law that says that McDonald's can't set up shop next to a Burger King. These people are just trying to make an honest living, and the city is making it impossible to do so. They say, for example, if you're a flower vendor, it's illegal for you to even set a bucket of flowers on the ground next to your feet.
Yeah, you have to keep moving. How do you sell flowers while you're moving? You get to stop when you're making the sale, right? But then you have to keep strolling along again?
You have to be in constant motion, which is completely unsafe. Even if you're on private property with the permission of the private property owner, you're in a Home Depot parking lot, let's say, you have to constantly move around the parking lot. That makes no sense.
So, Mayor Martinez, why is this a good law?
First of all, you don't want to have everybody in the middle of the streets competing for space on the sidewalk without some sort of regulations. In the city of Hialeah, we're not over-regulating anybody. This is one of those lawsuits that people decide that they want to sue, and they'll do that, and it's okay. But it's not restrictive. We made it very accommodating long before her client and the Institute even came to the city of Hialeah. Trust me.
Elizabeth, he says he'd have vendors all over the sidewalks. People wouldn't be able to walk by.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with legitimate laws that protect public health and safety. That's not what these laws are doing. In fact, the only reason for enacting these ordinances is to squelch competition between brick and mortar stores and street vendors. That's not American.
Let him answer.
No, it is not. It is not. Now, you also have to understand that there are other legitimate businesses that do pay property taxes that also have a right to be able to survive because they also create jobs. So what we did back then is we got all the groups together and we came with an ordinance that was satisfactory to all of the parties at the time.
Wait a second. You didn't get all the groups together because no one knows who all the groups are. There might be new people who want to enter this business. You got the established guys together. And let me ask you, do you have family members in the flower business?
No, I don't. Never had.
Okay. Just wanted to ask that. Let me ask Elizabeth, why would I ever open a brick and mortar store and pay property tax if I could save money, maybe $3,000 a year, and just have my cart?
Because these are different types of business models. A florist can offer professional arrangement, a florist can offer delivery, a florist has a bathroom, it has air conditioning. A street vendor is out there on the street, and the way they compete is on price and convenience because you can drive up and get your flowers and go home quickly. There's nothing wrong with having two different types of business models competing near each other. It happens in America all the time. And it's not legitimate for government to use its incredible power to make one business model have an unfair advantage over another.
Raul, why does this...
You're creating an unfair advantage when you allow that vendor selling in the front of a flower shop the same flowers that the flower shop is selling and at a much reduced price. So that's unfair competition.
So would it be legitimate to pass a law in Hialeah that said a McDonald's can't be next to a Burger King because they're competing with each other?
No, they're not. You see, you're a typical attorney. You're going apples to oranges. It's two brick buildings, one next to the other, and there are many of those
buildings. Just because they're brick buildings?
Do not limit it.
But just last question, Mr. Mayor, why do they have to keep moving around all the time?
Because that's the way that it was written years ago, that they must be moving, but they don't. They put their bucket, not what the lady's saying.
Look,
they put the bucket on the sidewalk.
We're out of time. I'm sorry.
They do it all the time.
Thank you, Raul Martinez and Elizabeth Foley. Next, are you afraid of China? Well, you should be, says my next guest, who says China's prosperity threatens us. I say, no, it doesn't. And we'll debate that next. China's economy booms. Will the American economy stagnate? Will China soon overtake us? Should we be afraid? Money manager Stephen Lieb says be very afraid. His new book, Red Alert, says China's growing prosperity threatens the American way of life. I'm skeptical, as is economist Don Boudreau. He's from George Mason University. He says we should be glad China is doing well.